Hey YouTube, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back to another episode of Dread Politics, where the goal of the show is to help everyday citizens like you understand our relationship to the systems of government on a basic level. The philosopher Plato said, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And I couldn't agree more. It's up to each of us to have an understanding of how our country runs so we prevent the political elites, that is, the morally inferior political elites, having oppressive power over our lives. That's on us. Because politics attracts manipulative and power hungry, sometimes evil people. Yeah, okay. Seriously, my first meme is Hitler. It's only downhill from here, folks. Sorry. Good politicians get ahead by telling us what's best for us. It's on us to have our own clear, distinct views in order to have our voices heard. We need to force them to take a position on issues by having our own well-based positions on issues. I'm not here to tell you what to think. What I want to do is encourage a more relevant thought process when dealing with these issues within the scope of government. So before we dive right into policies, we should talk a little bit about policy. So when we talk about government policy, there's four types of policy we can basically group them into. Foreign policies, criminal justice policies, social policies, and economic policies. And these will often overlap. Today, we're going to talk about economic policy, because if it don't make money, then it's not going to make sense. Now, I know my economists out here are already excited, but don't get the teeth out. You ain't going through all that. We're just going to work with the basics. Economics is based on the idea that people like you and me have to make choices for what we want, because we have limited resources. This is also true for businesses and their production. A farmer, for example, growing sugarcane and oranges. The farmer can only produce on or below this production possibilities curve. There is limited land, so more oranges means less sugar, and vice versa. The idea of limited resources also holds true for governments and other entities. Economists have a saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The resources used for that lunch could have gone to something else, and there was a cost involved. Now, you can still enjoy a box lunch, especially when it's curry. Say no on it. Just know it comes out of the budget. When we choose to do something with our resources, we could have done something else. And that something else that we can no longer do is called the opportunity cost. When making decisions, as hard as it may be, we need to ignore past decisions that can't be changed. The decision we make has no impact on the past. This is called a sunk cost. Maybe you have a B mobile phone instead of a Digicel. You made an economic decision based on the packages available, the services, etc. Our time is another economic resource, and who we choose to invest it in is another economic decision. Last time I mentioned that government doesn't produce. Unlike a business, the government holds means of production, not for profit, but for public good. Not by profits, but by public property, that is, resources and taxes, and not as a provider of wants, like a business, but as a provider of needs, like protection of rights. When we talk about rights, I think it's important to attach them to responsibilities. Just like in life, you should get out what you put in. Rights, in the absence of responsibilities, are entitlements. I'll say this again. Rights without responsibilities are entitlements. This guy gets it. This is because government spending and taxes go hand in hand. Think of it like a bank account. As a country rich in natural resources, our treasury, or bank account, consistently runs a trade surplus with foreign capital investment. This puts our account into positive numbers to start, to which we deposit additional taxes. We pay out for property rights, hold on a second, public roads, public education, public spaces, parks and sanitation, CPEP, URP, public works, civilization, sometimes. This is known as the social contract, an idea that originated in the early Enlightenment period and was written about by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It basically states that in a civilization, we give up some of our freedoms to the recognized power of a state in exchange for the protection of our remaining rights. When we talk about rights then, we need to also think about who the responsibility falls on to provide those rights. Otherwise, we're effectively stealing. This is called civic responsibility. In primary school, things like not littering, polluting, helping our elders when in need. Okay, fine. Take emissions, for example. Nobody would argue we all have a right to breathe clean air. So the government regulates carbon emissions on manufacturing, energy production, transportation, etc. This is so that producers have the responsibility to commit to sustainability in order not to infringe on the citizens' rights to clean air. The producer can't argue that they have a right to destroy the environment in order to make their living. On the other hand, it should be non-partisan which industries are regulated, and the research and proof of their public detriment should be well-founded. For example, food safety. If the government has the power to arbitrarily shut down manufacturers and restaurants, they can be influenced to heavily regulate beef, for example, because of pressure from the poultry industry or friendly chicken farms. This isn't fair to the cattle farmers or the people that produce their cattle feed. Furthermore, the money spent regulating and enforcing could be used to invest in communications technology or entrepreneurship, or given as a tax break, the opportunity cost. These are only a few examples, but lots of things can be framed in the context of economic issues, besides the obvious ones like tariffs or the minimum wage. Education is an investment in future technology, and youth development curbs crime, which is good for business, which is good for the economy. Even slavery and abolition were economic issues. If it wasn't for pressure from industrialization, we might still be trading each other openly. The government shouldn't necessarily have the power of a Robin Hood and the ability to steal from the rich to give to the poor, because when the government determines outcomes, only corruption will follow. The government needs to be like a referee, making sure everyone plays by the same rules and in the spirit of the game. Thank you for watching.